Anger is just a symptom. We need all men to be healed, but we need minority men, particularly, to heal and express vulnerability and be safe places for young men to come and be vulnerable.
In the relationship space, I feel like it's the man's responsibility to stand firm, to be an anchor.
We don't look for intimate relationships just in day-to-day life. It's important to recognize that vulnerability piece is super. I think it's the basis.
And finally, he said yes. So I go into his coach's office. I'll never forget this. And I told him,
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your main man, Coach Crump. Welcome to another great episode of the Boy Man King podcast. And I'm with my main man, Chizzy. Say what's up to the people, Chizzy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have an amazing guest with us tonight, today, this evening. It's going to be amazing.
We are humbled. We are humbled by the presence of greatness.
Yes,
we are blessed to have a guest who is world renowned, who's a speaker, entrepreneur, who's a leader, who's an incredible wife, incredible mother, has an incredible story. All over the country, she has not just been impacting people, families, but also men. She has a unique way of connecting to their hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage none other than Miss Rachel Joy Barbeau. Welcome to the platform.
Yes, sir. Let's clap it up. Welcome.
How you doing, sister?
oh, I'm blessed and highly favored, King.
Come on, you better say it. You better say it. Listen, I got the pleasure meeting you last year at the Next Level Conference. You was one of our speakers, and man, the Holy Spirit showed up. And one of the things that I took away a couple things about you as a wife, because you hear people are married, and for whatever reason, I think we all make assumptions, right,
Yeah.
Rachel Joy? But it's like not realizing that a lot of people from a man perspective, like, oh, you got children, that's a red flag for you. You went into a situation where you're successful, you're speaking, you're beautiful, you're doing all the things, and you decide to not only get married, but get married to your husband who has 4 children, and to become their mom and to be his support system.
Yes.
And just the way your mind worked, your perspective, we felt like it was so appropriate to be on our platform. So first of all, thank you. But just kind of let the listeners know what makes your situation, your circumstance so dynamic, and how you was able to make not only your husband, but men feel so comfortable in your presence.
Yeah. So first of all, y'all make me tear up already. I already got my tissue over here. But first of all, I just want to say thank you to both of you. When I got this request, the request went something like, we see the messaging that you're putting out to men in particular, and it's strong and it hits. And that just got me right, like in the seat of my soul, man, because I speak to women too, but I was a sportscaster for 17 years and then do what I do now, which is travel, speak, write books, train. And I do predominantly work with a ton of men, and I have a way from a maternal place of speaking to men, and talking to them about taking their mask off and being vulnerable and being real. And so when you guys asked me to do this, it validated like my very soul, my very existence, because I walked away from sportscasting to do this full time. And it's not been, and Coach Crump, you teach this, you and Jeremy teach us in the whole group. It's not just a straight arrow to success. It's like,
It's a journey.
the journey, but this is my calling. And so to answer your question quickly, yeah, I met this man and it was love at first sight. But then when I saw him with his kids, I laugh and tell people, I'm like, my ovaries did a backflip, like
Come on, backflip to the ovaries.
That's
Come on.
he's such a good father. Like he is
Come on.
the best father I have ever seen, and like ever,
I love it. I
and
love
he's
it.
an honorable man, and he's funny, and I met these kids, man, and has it been tough? Absolutely. Going from no kids to 4 kids, but
No kids
they're
to
my
4 kids.
existence, and they teach me, and they're my mirrors, and I couldn't imagine my life without them. Like literally, I couldn't imagine my life without them. They make me better humans.
So,
Yeah.
I really want to I want to explore this a little bit.
Yeah.
If just indulge me a little bit,
Yeah.
because you're a successful woman speaking
Mhm.
to a predominantly, I would assume, predominantly male audience.
Yeah.
Your husband has 4 kids. You're a power woman
Mhm.
all on your own. What was it about your current husband?
Mhm.
Because you could essentially, I would imagine you get accosted by men all the time. And as a woman in a predominantly male dominated sort of environment, so to
Mhm.
speak, what was it about him? Because I'm pretty sure in your mind you're like,
Mm.
all right, I'm got something good on here. What is it
Yeah.
about him and his circumstances that made you say this is something? This is a relationship. I respect him. I love him. I want to start a life
Yeah.
with a man that, for all intents and purposes, is established on
Yeah.
paper. What was it about
Woo.
their circumstances that made you say, all right, yeah, this is something I want to do, devoid of the ego that sometimes can come with
Yeah.
accolades
Mhm.
and stuff that you've achieved throughout your life. What was it about him and his circumstances?
Yeah. So first of all, I just have to say, I feel like we're gonna drop so much knowledge together, and the vibes are already here that we're gonna have to like do
Mm.
multiple like episodes. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna claim that.
Yeah.
uh because you hit on and I'm always teaching. When I tell stories, I'm always inviting your listeners or whoever it is into the story to see themselves in their story, in
Mhm.
the story, or my story, or your story. So what was different about him was this man had reached a level of healing and
Mm.
self-awareness where he came at me with honor, with integrity, where he wanted to date me and know me. He wasn't trying to, just have a night with me. He was honorable. The way he came at me, it was beautiful. I've never in my life, I'd met him. God had a big thing to do with it. He was seated next to my mother at this event. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He said, I fell in love with your
Wow.
mother before I fell in love with you. So
Wow.
later on that evening, we have some alone time together for the first time, and he leans over, and I'll never
Mm.
forget. He's a tall gentleman. He put his elbows on his knees, and he leans up and he says, I'm interested in dating you. And I was like,
Mm.
what? Like, woo, like,
Straight to the
Like
point.
what? Come on, take
okay,
initiative. Come on, take
okay,
initiative and know what you want in
yes,
life. You know what I'm saying?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
What was your initial thought though? Was your initial thought like, huh?
I
Did it catch
loved
you by
it.
surprise? Okay.
Oh yeah, it absolutely did, because we're in a time and place where things are cheap and
Yeah.
inauthentic and
Yeah. Yeah.
transactional. And what can you do
Mm.
for me?
Yeah.
And how can you best serve me? And so this man came at me with honor and dignity and
Hmm.
healing and maturity and morality and just all of it. And I was taken aback. I mean, I was like, "What?" Like I was completely shocked, but I loved it, and it made me feel like the woman that I had fought to be too and fought to heal, and the
Mm.
woman that Jesus healed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and before we get into more of your story, I got some
Yeah.
questions I gotta ask.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta hijack Chizzy's moment with you, just because I want to know some things while we got you, particularly on.
Mhm.
You have been able to make a space that's so hard to do, which is be safe with men, and for
Mm,
men to feel safe with you.
mm,
Why are women mean to men privately, whether it's um, significant relationship,
mhm,
whether it's traumatized family dynamic, but why
mhm,
in private do men just do not, from my experience of mentoring thousands of men,
mhm,
it's
mhm,
hard for them to feel safe emotionally
mhm,
because women privately
mhm,
are so mean to them.
mhm.
Where does that come from in your
Woo.
humble estimation?
Yeah, yeah. So ooh, we're going deep. I heard a psychologist once. So by the way, I'm just a layperson that pushes people to psychology, pushes people to
Yeah.
therapy. I've been called by a psychologist friend of mine a street therapist, and
Come on,
Hmm.
so
street therapist. Shout out to the street therapist. You speaking to Chizzy. You don't know reason why he's smiling, the reason why he's smiling so much, don't get your kindred spirits. Your street
Fact.
therapy, pushing
Yeah.
people, just being a layperson. You're
yeah.
Yeah.
speaking all of his language.
I love it. I love it. Well, this psychologist said one time, and I coach people as well, and I was talking to a man about this the other day, And I said, this psychologist said, look, women have many intimate relationships, meaning they've got sisters and girlfriends and all of these things. Men, in terms of being completely vulnerable, men have, you start with your mother, okay, you were birthed by your mother, and that dynamic with your mother, was she overbearing? Did she not hug you? Did she not tell you she loved you? Was she not proud of you? Did she, ride you? Was she warm? Was she affectionate? Was she, loved you unconditionally? All of, however that dynamic plays out, because all any of us are, y'all, is big people walking around with our little selves
Next.
going, listen to me, see me, listen to me. So that dynamic of having the mother, and then hopefully you grow up and you have a wife, or you have a significant other. Those are like the intimate, like, points for a man.
Yeah.
Women have 20 people they can go
Yeah.
talk to. Men don't have that.
Yeah.
And so these women and how they show up in their lives are so vitally important, y'all. So I met, let me just, I mask off. I tell the truth. I met Shannon and Shirley, Marriage Inc., last year at the conference. And Shannon and Shirley became my marriage counsel. I mean, my marriage counselor last year, my marriage coaches. And Shannon kept, Shirley kept telling me, she was like, man, we never talked about my husband, what he did. You know what we talked about? How I showed up, who I was, what I needed to do, how I needed to heal, how I needed to show up differently. And I'm just telling you, women, you have tremendous power in how you show up in your young sons' lives and your daddy's lives and your husband's lives. I do a lot of mess ups, but I recently had a situation where my husband, where we were in the middle of something and he was stressed out, and I paused and I just said, what do you need from me right now?
Yeah.
Like, what do you tell me what you need from me? Like, do you just tell me exactly what you need and I'll do it? And so what I would encourage your listeners to listen, to hear me when I say, if you're a woman, be mindful of how you show up in their lives. If you're a man, I would say to you that people can't respect boundaries that you don't tell them about. They also cannot give you things that you don't tell them that you need. So we have to work on, as men, being better communicators to tell people around us what we need and then holding them to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deep.
I
This is
love it.
this is I love where this conversation is going. I heard a lot of things when you spoke about your husband and how they showed up. The healing part stood out. It rang in my head
Mhm.
because again, it makes you recognize that you may have to be a soft place to land. And so
Yes.
for me, as a single man, single divorced man, a few years in the game, one of the first things I look for in a woman is them being a soft place to land, because part of my healing process, I've had to learn to know that my superpower is my vulnerability. And so
Yes.
if you enter into a place with a woman who doesn't recognize that as a superpower, that sees it to be a deficit or something
Yes.
that I struggle with, then there's always going to be this power struggle of emotions. So for me, knowing who I am as an individual, I say to females, I just want you to be a soft place to land, because I know my role as a man in terms of what I'm called to do, my purpose, and how I'm
Mm,
there to protect and preach and all those wonderful things. But I also know that part of who I am is being able to show up and show emotional intelligence and be vulnerable and be able to be, you know, myself when I'm around you. So it was very, very refreshing to hear you say as a woman, because
mhm,
men talk about this. Some men talk about this a lot, but to hear a woman tell other women that,
mm.
yo, you have to recognize the space that you're cultivating for your man in your life. That's very, very important, because like you said, men, customarily, we don't look for intimate relationships
Mm-mm.
just in day-to-day life. Like
Mm-mm.
Chris and I have known each other for years. And it's only in recent years, since we started partying and we got closer, that we share more of our deeper, more intimate stuff that we struggle with as a man. Because, part of the bravado and all that other stuff that men have, prohibits that. So it's important to recognize that vulnerability piece is super. I think is the basis.
It is, yes.
Is the
It's
basis for it all.
yes. And I just want to jump in and affirm you and just say, We're going into some stuff right here, wading into some waters of like divine masculine, divine
Mm-hmm.
feminine. We're
Mm-hmm.
wading into some waters about, you talked about vulnerability. When a man is in his divine masculine, and he's strong and he's safe, it allows a woman to be in her divine feminine. And there's been many situations. I was working with another client who he had been away for a long time and been deployed, and so his wife had to step up and be in a masculine role
Yeah.
because he had been deployed. And so now he is trying to come back and help her understand you can drop the masculinity. You don't
Sure.
no longer have to do that, my love, and you can be in your divine feminine. I hustled for years and years and years, and it was
Mm,
only me, and I was a leader and somewhat brash and relentless. And I still have some of those
mm.
qualities. But now that I'm
Yeah.
with a man who's in his divine masculine, I can breathe
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
be in my divine feminine.
Yeah.
But let's pause it. Let's not skip
Yeah.
over that
Yeah.
because you had to go through some steps because the modern challenges with relationships now is the masculine energy from a lot of women that don't
Yes.
even give space and freedom for men to even show up in their life as the natural masculine man that they're called to
Preach.
be. And
Yeah.
so a man is like, oh, since you got it all, not we don't express this because we are poor at communication when it comes to some of these elements that we talk about as far as interrelational understanding and boundaries. Particularly if we're not there yet in our confidence, or we're not there in our vernacular, or we're not there
Mhm.
in just our skill set,
Yeah.
but that what we're saying without saying is, oh, you got it all, you don't need me. And so
Mhm.
subconsciously, I fall back because of the way that you posture and position yourself, the way that you intervene, the way that you the tonality in which you speak
Mm.
in
Yeah.
my presence. I'm like, oh, so basically, I say it without saying like, okay, what you think, babe? I'm whatever you want, whatever,
You don't need me.
because
You got it all.
because
You figured it all
the
out.
spirit of it, the energy of it, the
Yeah.
ethos of this space that we're sharing is that you want to be in charge. You want
Yeah.
to be in
Yeah.
lead. And so going back to
Mm.
how did you deprogram yourself
Mhm.
as someone who had to do it as a coping or surviving mechanism as a
Mhm.
woman of the modern era to say, now that I have this man in my life and
Mhm.
I know who God has called him, I must now deprogram and also
Mhm.
program myself to connect to him in a way that's connected. So talk about what were some of
Mm.
the steps that you had to
Mhm.
go through.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'll say this too. If a woman is not mindful of this, then what a woman does to a man is the worst thing that I see a lot is emasculate him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Because men, your love language, by and large, I'm painting with a broad brush, is respect. You
Yeah.
respect a
mm,
man, you make him feel loved. You love a woman,
Mm-hmm.
you make her feel loved, right? Like, so it's love
mm,
and respect. There's an old book that's one of the best out there on that. How did I do that? A heck of a lot of therapy, a heck of a lot of getting on my
mm.
knees, a heck of a
Come
lot
on.
of coaching, of seeking help, of facing myself, y'all, looking at myself in the mirror. Then when I mess up, when I yell, when I act like an a-hole, going and saying, I'm sorry,
Sure.
recognizing that we are human. We're going to take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the only way is to learn. That is why I think my style of speaking and training and coaching works so well, is because I never get up there and say, I've got it all figured out. I say I'm a work in progress. I'm healing. I'm not healed up. And if I screw up, then I teach from that place. I say, you know what? I just had a fight with my daughter the other day, and this is how I wish I would have shown up. Here's what I learned from it. Here's how I apologize. And here's the actions that I took to change, beyond that. And I do the same thing with my married life, and my life in general. And I think people, especially men, they find a safe space in my soul because I don't show up trying to be perfect. I don't show up knowing it all, but I have learned some dang hard lessons and come out the other side with some wisdom. And I think that's partly why this all works so well.
That's great. I want to shift gears a little bit,
Yeah.
if I may.
Yeah.
We're going to go back a little bit in time. Um, your foundation. I'm changing the narrative. Talk a little bit about the genesis of I'm changing the narrative. You speak
Mm-hmm.
about mental health. You speak about domestic violence, and
Mm-hmm.
also being I guess the term is survivor of
Yep.
domestic violence.
Yep.
Speak about the genesis of I'm changing the narrative and what got you into this space. What was your why? Why did you get into mental health? Why did you get into speaking?
Mhm.
Why did you get into encouraging men and women, to
Mhm.
occupy and learn about healing and self care? Let's take us back a little bit about, I guess, growing up and what was the beginning point where you said, "All right, this is what I want to do."
Yeah. So two things. I saw abuse growing up, and as I got older, I said, I'm not going to repeat these generational patterns that have happened in my life. And Coach
Mm,
Crump heard that at the conference about some things are meant to end with you, and some generational blessings
Mm-hmm.
are meant to continue with you.
yeah.
And so I decided early on in my soul, I was not going to repeat what had happened to my mom and grandmother. So that was one thing. But secondarily, I had a situation many moons ago where I was drug across the house by my hair, who's somebody in a home by somebody who claimed to love me. And there were other men in the house and no one came to help me. And this went on for like 30, 45 minutes.
Wow.
And so I had processed it, put it away. And then
Mm,
back in 2016, I was the first female host on Sirius XM on their collegiate channels, flying high, voting for the Heisman, hosting the college football playoff, just really on the top of my career.
Yeah.
And there was a case of a young man, and he's turned his life around, and I'm so happy for him. But he was at an SEC school, and he was caught striking a woman on camera, and he was suspended for one game. And it just brought this memory searing back. And I wrote an article called College Football is Breaking My Heart. And in it I talked about publicly the first time forever ever of this situation that happened to me. And I remember calling my parents. My mom was still alive at the time, and I said, I'm going to publish this. I want to talk about it, but I need to tell you about it because I never
mm,
did before, because I had shame. And she cried and she was sad that I'd never told her. And she said, Are you sure? And I said, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. And y'all, fast forward, that was in 2016. I wrote this article, it went completely viral. That was the time during college football that guys were getting in trouble for domestic violence, sexual violence, coaches getting in trouble, guns, this. I mean, it was just a wild, wild Baylor, Penn State, scandals everywhere.
Yeah.
And my friend Dr. Elko, who was Nick Saban's right hand mental man for 27 years, he called
mm,
and he said, I thought I'd written a curriculum. I laugh and say that. It was like a 2-page Google Doc, about what makes
mm,
your heart beat faster. What were you born for? Would you have helped me if you were in that house that night? And I thought I would go into high schools. He calls me and he said, Oh, by the way, I got you into FSU football. Jimbo Fisher wants you to come speak.
Mm.
And that was the beginning 9 years ago in August. And now I've been to 80 plus colleges, now work in the NFL, men's maximum security prisons, law enforcement, border patrol, LAPD, Florida Sheriff's Association, just kind of all over the country, primarily working with men. Yeah. And women, but yes, a lot of men.
My mind is spinning right now. There's a lot of things that come to mind.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about? Obviously, I'm not trying to diminish anything here. I'm saying
Yeah.
mental health is a contemporary issue and conversation that's taking place right now. Obviously, in football, we talk about CTE. That there's a lot of studies been done about damage, about the psychological and brain function as a result of high impact from that sports. What do you think it is about you as Rachel Joy that
Mhm.
people gravitate towards? Like, what do you think your brand? What is it about you that says people listen to what I have to say? Why
Yeah.
why are you relatable?
Yeah, such a good question. And I will put it back to you two and everybody who listens to this podcast. What are your unique gifts that
Hmm.
God has given you that no one can take away from you, that are different than everybody else? I have no idea what it is. It's going to make me cry, but I probably heard it 1,000 times in my life, and people will say to me, I don't know what it is about you, but you have this quality where I feel safe
Sure.
telling you my
mm,
whole life story within 20 seconds. And so I'll get up there and vulnerably, share my life, mask off, just as high, low, all the things. And they line up afterwards and they tell me their whole life story. I'll tell you very briefly two impactful stories. One, he's now at Kansas, but I was speaking at Buffalo. I spoke there multiple times. Lance Leipold was the coach, and I spoke, and some gentlemen stayed, and we talked. And for me, and Coach Crump knows this, I don't call myself a speaker anymore. I call myself a sacred space holder. Because,
Okay, I like that.
woo,
I like
yeah.
Come
that.
on.
You gotta
Come
coin
on.
that.
Because,
You
Ding.
gotta
because,
trademark that.
We're supposed to hit the bell. Ding, ding, ding. We're supposed to,
because the talk,
touchdown.
right? The talk is just the talk. This is what
Yeah.
I do is I create relationships and I
Yeah.
create safe spaces. So this player stays, sits down next to me, and he starts crying. And then I start crying. It's just the two of us. And he says, Rachel, he says, I need to tell you that everybody on my team thinks I'm a troublemaker. I wear my backpack in. I'm the first one out. I'm the last one in. I'm quiet. And he said, but what they don't know, and this is a trigger warning, but he said, what they don't know is that my mom was sexually assaulted at the housing complex, and there were people within earshot to help her, and no one helped her.
Wow.
And we just sat there, both of us just bawling. And I finally said, I said, baby, I said, you got to let me tell your coach so we can get you help. And finally, he said yes. So I go into his coach's office. I'll never forget this. And I told him, and the coach got tears in his eyes. And he said, Rachel, thank you. He said, we were going to kick him off the team. That young man wasn't angry, he was
Mm-hmm.
broken.
Yeah.
Anger is just a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why we need, I'm a minority. We need all men to be healed, but we need minority men, particularly, to heal and express vulnerability and be safe places for young men to
Yes.
come and be vulnerable.
Yes.
Otherwise, we just label them angry
Yes.
brown men,
Yes.
angry black men, angry
Yes.
white men. They're not angry. 9 times out of 10, they're not angry. See how
Yeah.
passionate I get? There, something has happened to them along the
Sure.
way. That's why I work in maximum security prisons. Almost always, there's a story behind how they got there, and I teach them to rectify it and try to do better so that 10 generations forward, their kids aren't offending as well.
Yeah, Chris could probably share the same sentiment. I don't think there's ever been one young man that I've spoken with or worked with or supported in my entire life that didn't
Come
have a
on.
story that underpinned how his
Fact.
presenting behaviors looked. And
Yeah.
everybody was so quick to be like, with the labels and all of that. But it's only through relationship and intimacy and vulnerability that you have to express and you have to show first to people where they are able to just open up and talk, which is why I actually questioned in the beginning, because for me, I believe it's something you either have or you just don't have.
Right.
It's just something you just possess or you don't possess.
Yeah. And I think
Cool.
too, if I can just add this really quickly before we move on, I think
Mhm.
also I learned I genuinely love people. Like I'm a
Yeah,
people lover, and I grew up with a mom and a grandmother and a dad, but that were servants that loved people, that just just reveled in people and felt like they were millionaires because of the people they loved, and vice versa. So that love of people, also with this gift that I have to manage because it's a heavy gift. I have inside my soul are thousands and thousands and thousands of
transference and
secrets,
yes,
right? Like
yes,
I'm
yes.
carrying them and I have to learn how to manage this
How
gift.
do you manage that? That's
A
helpful.
lot of a
Sorry
lot
not
of
to go.
soul
Yeah,
care. And I told
yeah.
Coach Crump this in the conference, like soul care, deeper than self-care. What fills the cup of my soul? Do I need to
Mhm,
go read, garden, take a
mhm.
nap, take a walk, ground, pray? What do I need to fill the cup of my soul? Otherwise, I'm dry and dusty and I can't
Yeah,
help nobody else.
Yeah,
facts.
it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. Is like I was, I'm so used to being Coach Crump and people want me to speak, coach, mentor, say something.
Yeah.
And I was like, in the season that I'm in, I need my soul to be filled up and I need to sit under leadership and worship
Mm.
and preaching and teaching. And I got a chance today just to be by myself and go online and man, I cried, I worship, I prayed, but
Mm,
I just needed that because it's like because I'm managing so much, that's a necessity in this season that I'm in. Like I need my soul care to be
can't pull from that.
A1 because I can't keep showing up, keep showing up, keep troubleshooting. And I'm like, listen, I am flatlining and I need to make sure. So it's like, because sometimes you can self-sabotage off just being guilt tripping yourself that you feel like you always have to be certain ways for people, but you just have to be you and you have to
Yeah.
make sure you take care of yourself. But I want us to, while we got you, Rachel, because I want to try to break down some of these nuances that I think you are a people person. You have an incredible story. But the
Mhm.
practicality of who you are today
Mhm.
is really the door being open to you, why so many men feel safe with you. And that's not the case for majority of women outside of manipulating the space for personal gain. And we
Mhm.
Yeah.
can talk about those,
Mhm.
forces that we all kind of aware of that
Mhm.
people are profiteering off of access to men, but it's more just manipulation. But you're strictly in the intent of helping.
Yes.
But a lot of women have that desire. They
Mhm.
want a connection, they want to be safe, and they want to be in a position to help, but it just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
And you said something
Mhm.
when we asked you earlier. You said, I went and got coaching, I
Mhm.
went and got therapy, I went and got
Mhm.
on my knees, and
Mhm.
I said, I'm sorry. We heard four levels of just accountability that a lot
Yes.
of men, if I could be frank with you, some men have been with women for years and
Never.
never heard one time their significant other say to them in private, I'm sorry. So not
Mhm.
only did you say I'm sorry, which to be frank, in the men's world, that's like, oh, have you ever heard? No, man, I've been 5 years, I've been for 10 years. I've never heard her say,
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry. And it's like, and it's weird because if we take emotion out, if you
Mhm.
live with somebody as a human flesh, particularly if you're a Christian, you
Yeah.
already know you made mistakes with them every single day because you sin every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah.
But one of those every single day sins is going to really hurt and offend
Your
that
partner.
person.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to do that regularly, not just one off, but you're going to do that regularly, right?
Mhm.
But I'm still trying to process all that you've been through and all that you could have played justifiably victim of what happened
Mhm.
to you.
Mhm.
You decide to come to a man with four children, none of your own, and
Mhm.
you decide to take a coach, listen to the coach, get therapy, pray
Yeah.
on your knees,
Yeah.
and say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How do women get there? Because for a lot of men, and Chizzy can chime in, we feel like there's a big space in between of what you said you did and what we're generally experiencing from a lot of women who are quote unquote successful, quote unquote
Mhm.
masculine energy, quote unquote don't have no children and have it all together, but to act
Mhm.
to integrate yourself in a circumstance and situation where you're fully committed to being held accountable for how and
Mhm.
why you show up the way you show up. What steps, like what can either the men take away that, because sometimes we feel like we can't do nothing, or what can the women do to be like, okay, this what really helps to get to that level that you're trying to get to.
Yeah. So first things first, if your listeners are writing things down, I teach on this idea of over communication versus under communication. Every bad thing happens when we under communicate, assume we every one of us has read a text before and we read the text in the voice that we hear in it. You know what I mean? Like we don't even know if they sent it that way. We're just applying it. So the first thing I would say is over communication versus under communication. The other thing that I would say, what happened on those levels that you talked about, coach, is that, man, there was a lot of painful accountability there. Like, I looked at my life, I looked at the decisions I made, I looked at the woman that I was showing up as, and the learned behaviors that I picked up from my mom and grandmother generationally. Like one of them was running. And I mask up. I used to be a runner. My husband's stick to it stay. First couple of years of our marriage, anytime anything happened, I'd say, well, I'm out. D word, I'm out. Blah, 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 I'm out. I threatened to run. And that was a learned behavior. And we finally had to have a conversation where he said, Rachel, if we fight, just go to the other side of the house. Please do not leave. That is a trigger for me, and I said, well, I'm just going,
Mm,
he said, I had somebody that didn't do right, when they left, regardless of whether I was just going to
mm.
a hotel or what. And so everything good happens when we over communicate and get vulnerable. I praise him,
Yeah.
man. He we were having a disagreement a couple of weeks ago, and in the middle of it, I'm Latina and I'm reactive, I'm spicy. That's some of the stuff I'm working on. And I felt myself start to work up, and he paused and he goes, this was so freaking amazing. He paused, he looks at me and he goes, you know what I need right now when I'm like this, when I'm stressed? He said, I need you, don't yell. That just escalates. Hug me. Like, just like comfort me. And I'm like, damn. Like,
Hold on, let's talk. Let's
What?
talk about. Okay. We gotta pause. We gotta pause because I was supposed to pause on the first statement, but we just gotta give your husband a shout out because he is also displaying a level of skill that a lot of men don't have, including myself.
Vulnerability and
Where
communication about what
yeah,
needs are.
you hearing that, Chizzy? Like you done
Yeah.
said three times, twice in this story, where there was a conflict because conflict is natural. We're all
Yes.
gonna have
Yes.
conflict. It's how you
Yes.
address it. But what your husband is distinctly displaying is the art of communicating his needs
Yes.
to you in the midst of that
I was gonna
conflict.
say within the conflict, that's the important,
Yes.
that's the takeaway within the conflict because
Yeah. And I
in
didn't have that skill. So
yeah,
it created more. The reason why I'm pausing there,
Yeah.
I didn't have that type of skill. I kind of defended myself
Yeah.
or like who you think you talking to type
yeah,
energy,
Yeah.
yeah,
or I got silent, which also doesn't help when you
You went
don't.
into your cave. You went into your
Yeah.
cave,
mm-hmm.
Coach Carla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I'm hearing with your husband, man, that's the third time. I'm like, we're not just gonna drive by you
Mm-mm.
having these, I like to run. Look, don't do that to me because somebody in the past did that to me. And when they ran away and left the house, they
Mm-hmm.
end up doing something that compromised our relationship with somebody
Mm-hmm.
else. So when
Mm-hmm.
you do that, I can't speak on what you're doing or not doing. So if you have to run away,
Mm-hmm.
just run to the other side of the house because I
Yes.
understand that's something that you got to work on. Like that level of conversation was not happening in my marriage until
But
recently.
you get that with healing. With healing,
Mm-hmm.
you become more self aware, and your triggers become less because what happens is it goes from you understand you know what that feeling starts to feel like in your tummy when that emotion comes, but through therapy and through healing, you recognize that all right, I can feel it, I can feel it. Now I can attach a positive result to more of a negative reaction. Whereas if you're not healed, you're going to feel it and then you retreat, or you're going to feel it or you'll run. As opposed to a healed person feels it, they still feel it, make no mistake about it, but it's now a proactive approach as opposed to a reactive approach. And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
critical piece that I'm hearing Rachel talk about, that both individuals have gotten to a place where the self awareness is at a level that allows them to have conflict, rise above the conflict, and be able to communicate effectively what their needs are to further get to a positive result. But a lot of couples don't take those steps because a lot of times what we do is we try to get healing within a relationship, or we try to, you have to do all of that before you get into something, so that when you get into something, you have a clear understanding of what your triggers are, what your needs are, what your
Or
non-negotiables are. Go ahead.
yeah, but or you could be in the relationship, but just
And
still
heal.
work on the healing,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
independently, like, not with that person is responsible for your healing, and
facts.
that's also a dysfunction. Yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
Rachel.
and no, I was just going to say this to both of y'all. You're on the right path. What I've always said, and I've learned from therapists and my own life, is I can't change nobody else.
No.
The only
Hmm.
person I can change is this person right here.
Yeah.
So if I do my work and people around me see it, and they notice it. It's if I'm with a person that's on the same level as me, meaning they're awake and they're aware,
Hmm.
they're gonna go and start looking at themselves and go, it's inspiring when you're
True.
with somebody who's going to the gym, who's leveling up, who's trying to get smarter, who's hitting the books, who's in therapy.
Iron
Man, you
sharpens
start looking
iron.
at yourself.
Yep.
You're like, do I want this Big Mac? Do I want to do that? Like you start leveling up. And so his healing made me want to heal. I think my healing made him want to heal. And
Hmm.
then the other thing that's happened too for us is I've learned, Shirley taught me this, and another therapist as well, is that your triggers are actually an invitation.
Yeah.
If
Hmm.
you can sit with what you're triggered by long enough, I heard this quote one time, and it said, "I sat with my pain long enough to know it was grief."
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, that's powerful.
What's the genesis of that trigger?
Mm,
Yeah.
And
What is it?
understanding that. Yeah.
Who hurt me?
Yeah.
Who hurt me?
mm,
So I told you I teach from this place. So last summer I went on a family vacation, blended families. It's always hard, right? Like
Hmm.
a lot of different things were going on. At the end of the trip, there was some conflict, and I showed up in a way that was not becoming to myself, that was not becoming to my
mm,
family. And in our trip, the end of it was sullied. It was kind of ruined. And I apologize to my daughter for the way that I showed up. And
Mm.
beyond apologizing, I wouldn't put myself back in therapy. Beyond
Mm.
apologizing, I got
Come
on my
on.
knees. Beyond apologizing, I had a big church conference that I was speaking to women. And I had this whole thing outlined, y'all. And at the last minute, God told me, go up there and tell them how you failed on this trip and
Yeah.
what
Mm.
came as a result of it. And
Mm.
tell them that the enemy does not get to have a chokehold on their life because they have failed before. Failure is not the
Mm.
end.
Come
Failure
on,
is
Faye.
only
It's not the
failure
end.
if you don't change and grow from it. And my daughter and I's relationship after that, because she saw me grow and change, and my I sorry was followed up by actions,
Yes.
true actions.
Yes.
Our relationship as a bonus mom and a daughter deepened like just eons because she saw me do the work. And a lot of speakers would not go and speak to 1,000 women at a church conference about their failures.
Yeah.
But guess what? If I'm up there preaching on, I'm so good, I'm so right, everything's so
I love
perfect,
it.
what am I teaching people? Because that's just a
And,
bunch of bullcrap.
Yeah.
and listen, Rachel, I want us to, because this is what I really wanted to ask you now that we got here.
Yeah.
Um, I have a fundamental philosophy and belief on certain things, and one of them is in the relationship space. I feel like it's the man's responsibility to stand firm, to be an anchor, to be a bell cow, to be something that we can all go up against and like, okay, that's it's stable there. Like because everybody else, the women and children are all trying to figure it out, right? But I do believe the women are responsible for the rhythm of
Mm,
how it feels and how we move and the energy, the spirit, the space that it's in. And what I got revelation of, I had that conviction, but I didn't have the awareness or education of how to make that happen. And when I saw my wife put in the work the past three years, the rhythm is so good now. I've
mm-hmm,
always kind of been responsible, Chizzy. I've always been kind of like, but the rhythm inside the home wasn't always I was praying, but like my wife, a woman just has this power
mm,
where if they're in their superpower, like it feels good to
yeah.
everybody. But also, if they're not in their superpower, it
Oof,
feels
everything's off.
awkward and
Disruptive.
weird for
Yeah.
everybody. It's not
Yeah.
just they're off, but everybody's kind of on eggshells. Like, and I've experienced a lot of men say, man, I'm on eggshells when I'm home.
Yeah.
If the dish is not clean, if the toothpaste is left out, if the trash is not taken out, if the room bathroom is not clean, she's gonna turn into, you know what I mean, like whatever. And so you said it three times this last
Mhm,
statement, the power of putting in that work and it changed the dynamics of you and your daughter. But
mm,
I'm challenging you to say, have it changed? You putting in so much work over the past couple of years, let's just
mhm,
say, just the past
mhm,
couple, how
mhm,
that's changed the rhythm in your home? Because you said when we went
mhm.
on a family trip, it kind of went south because I showed up a certain way that just kind of
Yeah.
killed it at the end, that I
Yeah.
actually had to apologize.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, a man is not going to, no disrespect, come home. If a man who have his elk, who's in a position, who's doing a thing,
Mhm,
he's not going to emotionally hijack the whole experience. But a woman has a way of just, I can't really explain it, but like if they do that type of work,
mm.
everybody's a benefit of the
Yeah.
rhythm, the feel, the vibe of a thing.
That's good,
Talk
man.
about your yeah, talk about your experience with that and how can women, we really
Mhm.
want to help how women can do that as well as we close.
Yeah, look, be his rib. Be a rib. You were created in your divine feminine. You are
Biggest thing.
not created to lead, to
Mhm.
tell, to wear the pants, to do those things. Look, I'm a busy woman, entrepreneur, businesswoman, all that. But that service, I heard somebody say the other day, if you two are out serving each other, man, that's a beautiful marriage, a beautiful relationship. And no matter what, like nobody told me, it was never discussed. But at night, I'm gonna put a meal on the table, or I'm gonna figure out a meal. I'm gonna feed my man. Now, sometimes is
Mm.
it inedible? And he's like, you know, he's but he eats it, and he's
It's the
Yeah.
fine,
intent, dude.
but
Yeah.
I
We
love it.
appreciate
Like,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do this little like
I
cloth
matter.
napkin. Yeah, I feel like I serve my man. Like I feed my
Mm.
man. Y'all have different responsibilities and stresses on you that a woman cannot even fathom. And I want to say this to men really quickly. I spoke this at the NFL annual meetings. I was invited. Men were created to do more than protect, perform, and provide.
Yes.
You were created for more than protect, perform, and provide. I speak to thousands of men about, have you ever thought about soul care? No, ma'am, I never have. Has anybody ever talked to you about loving your own soul? No, ma'am, nobody's ever talked to me about that. The reason why I think it works, to go back to what you've been asking, is I am in my divine feminine. I'm in my divine maternal, my warm self. And so I show up for people as ma, as aunt, as coach, as, it's why I cried all weekend during draft weekend, because I see these boys beyond the
Mm,
helmets. I've seen what they've gone through, what they've
come
lost.
on.
I have seen the backside, the entire side of their life, right? So I've seen the
Mm.
crushing and the pressing and all of it. And we're gonna have to do another whole episode
I
on
was gonna
Shador
say.
Sanders and how
She's,
these people, including, I mean, I've probably done it for my life, saying, well, he was entitled, he was this. Have you never been entitled, sir? Have you never been entitled, man? Have you never acted in
For
ways that
sure.
you weren't proud of?
For
Because
sure.
this is a young man still learning. We're all still learning.
Yep.
And I just found a lot of people pointing fingers and doing this to this young man over this draft weekend that blew my mind.
mm. But and listen, Chizzy, I want you to close us out with your final statement. But Rachel, man, this has been rich. We might have to definitely do a round two. Chizzy, what's your final
Please.
I
thoughts?
don't even know if I have a final, but I'm just gonna say it's been it's been refreshing to hear a woman's perspective
Yeah.
on service, on operating in her purpose through God. I think that's the key takeaway for me, because the only way you get to be in your divine is through understanding your purpose through our Lord and Savior
Yes.
Jesus Christ and through God, and that's the
Yes.
only way that it functions. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything you've conveyed on this platform. We would love to have you back to have
Please.
part two to this discussion. This could go on forever, because the mental
Yeah.
health space,
Yeah,
you know me, like I live and
yeah.
breathe in that space. So I just want to say thank you for blessing our platform, and we wish you all the success. And do not be a stranger, for sure.
I
Yeah,
will not. Go
and
ahead. Go
Rachel
ahead,
Joy,
coach. Yeah.
yeah, tell us where they can find more about you, upcoming projects, anything that you can let the people know to get some more Rachel Joy.
Yes, yes, yes. First of all, I have to tell Chizzy, I'm like a part-time matchmaker, so you just watch out. I might be picking
Hey,
you up in
okay.
the future.
I'm up to get
So
my mind right, so I'll be ready. I'll
I'm
make sure
just
I'm ready
saying.
when it's time.
Just
Yeah,
saying, but no, I'm working on my second book
mhm.
right now, and I'm super excited about that. We're about to take that to publishing houses. I'll be again at the Next Level Speakers Conference. Man, when you're asked once, it's one thing, but when you ask back, that means people liked you. That
Come on.
means you made
Yeah,
an impact. So I'll
I
be
get
there
it.
yeah,
in Atlanta. If you desire to speak, you need to be there. Point
yeah.
blank. That is it. Is so many amazing speakers to learn from. When I come, I stay all weekend. I'm like, I ain't
Come
coming
on.
in for one thing. I want to learn from everybody there. But
I
doing
love it.
that, I'm training an entire sheriff's department for a whole month, because I think no one is beyond gone. We can change people, and people have certain perceptions about bad apples or whatever it may be. The more we raise up kings at any age, they will have the power and the passion to be able to change a narrative in their workspace. And so lots of speaking engagements. I'm going to be with the San Francisco 49ers, their rookies, at the end of May. So God is good. He's blessing me. And I even said it this morning in church. Just send me, God. Here I
Come on,
am.
just send me.
Just send me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go. I'll
And,
go.
and and just send us a like, share, and follow on the Boy Man King podcast, man.
Yes.
Please tap into our YouTube page, also our Instagram, Rachel Joy Bible. It was absolute pleasure and
Amazing.
joy to have you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for the great episode. And as we say on the Boy Man King podcast, the journey continues. We out. Be blessed. You guys have a good one.